Anthony Edwards has been frustrated ever since Karl-Anthony Towns was traded away from Minnesota. Now KAT is finally responding, and his reaction is making fans revisit that trade all over again. Because the more this story unfolds, the more it looks like Minnesota may have lost a lot more than just a player. Let me break it down. Karl-Anthony Towns just won an NBA title with the New York Knicks, and the first thing he did after the final buzzer was pick up his phone and FaceTime Anthony Edwards. That's the image. Your former teammate, your brother, is standing there holding the Larry O'Brien trophy, sweat still on his face, confetti raining down in San Antonio, and he calls you. Not a press conference, not a sponsor, you. On ESPN's postgame show, Towns didn't waste a second. A huge shout out to all the teammates I've had before coming here. Shout out to my brother, Anthony Edwards. I'm talking to him all the time. He said, those guys made me better, made me a better leader, made me a better player, made me the man I am today. Warm words, genuine words. But here's what makes them sting a little, or a lot, depending on which jersey you're wearing. The New York Knicks beat the San Antonio Spurs to win the 2026 NBA Finals. For the first time since 1973, New York is a champion. And the guy they got from Minnesota, the one Minnesota moved off the books to avoid paying, just did something Minnesota has never done. Edwards called Towns his brother when the trade happened. Towns called Edwards his little brother after winning a championship. 2 years after they were battling together in Minnesota, they were celebrating together again, this time with an NBA championship trophy sitting beside one of them. But while that FaceTime call was warm, the conversation happening around Ant in Minnesota right now is anything but. ESPN's Tim McMahon and Brian Windhorst went on the Who Collective podcast, and McMahon didn't waste time. He said the timing of Minnesota's latest roster move, happening right as the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade to the Miami Heat went down, has the rest of the NBA zeroing in on Ant. The NBA vultures are swirling around Ant in anticipation of him potentially becoming the next superstar who's available in the trademark, McMahon said. Then Windhorst went deeper. He added that Ant's frustration didn't start with the latest moves. It goes back much further, all the way to when KAT was dealt to New York. Ant was really frustrated throughout, really just been frustrated since Towns got traded at how he gets double teamed, Windhorst said. And that's not a small thing to sit with. That's nearly 2 full seasons of quiet, building in the background frustration. Wolves insider Darren Wolfson had already said on the Flagrant Howls podcast that keeping Ant happy has become the organization's biggest priority behind the scenes. The fear is that at some point does Ant, through his representation, signal a desire to be elsewhere. We are nowhere near that point, but the fear is there, Wolfson said. 3 separate voices, 3 separate platforms, all pointing to the same place. So to understand exactly what's happening, you have to go back to where it started. The day Minnesota decided Karl-Anthony Towns needed to go. The fall of 2024, training camp is approaching, and out of nowhere, the Minnesota Timberwolves dropped one of the most shocking moves of the offseason. The NBA landscape shifted with the news of the trade that sent 4-time All-Star Karl-Anthony Towns to the Big Apple to join the New York Knicks. The Timberwolves were getting another All-Star in Julius Randle and gritty guard Dante DiVincenzo in return. On paper, you could make a financial argument for it. Financial concerns were central in the decision to swap Towns for Randle and DiVincenzo, plus a first-round pick that was used on French center Joan Beringer. Towns was about to start a 4-year, $220 million extension at the time of the trade, and the Wolves were concerned about paying him alongside Edwards on a max deal and Rudy Gobert making over $40 million. The front office framed it as sustainability, as smart roster management, as what a well-run organization does when it sees a salary cliff coming. But Anthony Edwards was on a plane when all of this went down. When asked if he had been given a chance to give input to the front office on the deal, Edwards said he hadn't because he was on a plane at the time. He found out the way the fans did. And when he landed, I think everybody knows KAT is my brother, so that definitely hurt, Edwards said during the team's media day. He communicated with Towns via text messages after his plane landed. It was incredible, Edwards said of their relationship. They talked through messages, just talking to each other about everything, how it started. And he sent me a picture of him at the gym at like 3 in the morning. That right there tells you who these two people are. KAT, freshly traded to New York, alone in a gym at 3 a.m., not feeling sorry for himself, working, and Ant, on the other end of the phone, watching his foundation be rearranged in real time. They had played together for 4 seasons and helped the team rise from first-round participants to conference finalists. Apart from the on-court chemistry they carefully built, they also shared an equally strong bond off the floor. which is why Edwards was taken aback when he first heard the news. Edwards said he was ready to get to know Randall and DiVincenzo and try to get things figured out as fast as possible, because they were trying to get back to where they were and go even farther. Both he and Towns had been the #1 picks by Minnesota and had been paired together to get the team back to playoff relevance. They did that by going to the Western Conference Finals, but financial concerns were likely a big motivator behind the deal. He was trying to stay positive, trying to be a leader, trying to trust an organization that had just made a massive call without him. But the game doesn't lie, and the moment KAT left the building, the league was already drawing up plans for how to suffocate Ant. Here's the thing about being Anthony Edwards without Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor. Every defense in the league immediately understood what it meant, and they went to work. Since Kate was shipped out, opposing defenses had no reason to respect anyone else on the floor the way they once respected that pairing. Teams made Edwards their singular defensive focus, throwing double teams at him relentlessly and forcing the ball out of his hands in critical moments. For a player of Edwards' caliber and competitive fire, that kind of treatment game after game, season after season, wears on you. Think about what that actually looks like. You're one of the most explosive scorers in the NBA. You catch the ball, and before you've even taken a dribble, there's already a second defender collapsing on you. Every drive, every post-up, every isolation, two bodies, because the team behind you doesn't scare anyone enough to stop it. Minnesota traded Towns and never fully replaced what he gave Edwards as an offensive partner. KAT's shooting range pulled big defenders away from the basket and opened up cleaner driving lanes. Once he was gone, the Timberwolves lost one of the few front-court stars who could punish teams for crowding Edwards. That left Minnesota with many of the same half-court issues that defined its incomplete offense throughout last season. Randall was a solid player. Nobody's taking that away from him. He averaged 20 points per game with 6-9 rebounds and 4-9 assists over his 2 seasons in Minnesota. But Randall is not a floor spacer. He is not someone who commands the defensive attention that a 7-foot shooter commands. He doesn't open lanes for anyone. He competes for the same spaces. So defenses just kept sending 2 men at Ant. Every game, every clutch moment. A persistent thought throughout the 2025-26 season was blaring like a giant warning. Anthony Edwards needed more help in the form of a true complementary star, and he didn't have that with this iteration of the Wolves. In Game 5 against San Antonio, Ant took just 13 shots in 39 minutes while being constantly swarmed 30 feet from the basket. 13 shots in 39 minutes for one of the league's best scorers. That's not a strategy anymore, that's a straitjacket. Following one stretch of losses in the 2024-25 season, Edwards blasted his team's performance, calling the team culture soft. "We can't talk to each other," he said. "Just a bunch of little kids. Just like we playing with a bunch of little kids?" He wasn't aiming at his teammates. He was aiming at what the team had become without the connective tissue that KAT provided. And behind all of that outward fire was 2 years of quiet, building frustration that ESPN's Windhorst was only now finally putting words to. Speaking on the Hoop Collective podcast, McMahon and Windhorst painted a picture of a star who had been unhappy for longer than most people realized. McMahon said the vultures were swirling, and Windhorst added that Edwards' frustration did not begin with the latest playoff exit. It traces back to the KAT trade in the fall of 2024. 2 years. Not 2 weeks, 2 years of facing this every single night and somehow still putting up career numbers while the organization around him kept rearranging the furniture. If the KAT trade was the spark, what happened in the 2026 offseason poured fuel on everything. The Knicks, meanwhile, were going 16-3 in the playoffs. KAT was the most important player outside of Jalen Brunson as New York steamrolled through the bracket. Randall, on the other hand, was ineffective as the Timberwolves lost to the Spurs, while DiVincenzo suffered an Achilles tear in the first round. So Minnesota sent back to Brooklyn the very centerpiece they got from the KAT deal. Late Monday, the Wolves gained salary cap relief by sending Randall and their first-round pick in the 2026 draft to Brooklyn, as part of a broader 3-team transaction that also sent Nick Claxton to the Chicago Bulls. In exchange, Minnesota acquired the 33rd pick in the second round. The move was nothing more than a salary dump, which they used the savings from to extend Ayo Dosunmu on a 5-year contract. The community didn't need long to connect the dots. Fans immediately made the link. So you're telling me they traded KAT for salary relief and are now dumping Randall for the same reason? Free A&T. Windhorst was blunt about it on the podcast. "This was a Julius Randle salary dump," he said. "The takeaway from this is a straight salary dump for Minnesota." And Kendrick Perkins, who knows a thing or two about leaving a small market for a chance at a ring, came in hot. "The thing that stands out the most is that y'all chose Rudy over Towns because of the second apron, and y'all traded Towns away. And now this mother has a championship," Perkins said. "What I'm saying is Ant-Man going to be looking like, hey man, it was blunt, it was messy, and it was exactly what millions of people were thinking." Shai Gilgeous-Alexander already has a title to his name. Wembanyama, at 22 years old, is already deep in the playoffs. Tatum and Brown have championship rings. Ant is seeing his peers winning while Minnesota keeps coming short. The optics were brutal. Towns, the player Minnesota decided they couldn't afford, is now a champion. Randle, the player they got back, is now a net. And Edwards, the player every franchise decision is supposed to serve, is watching all of this from Minnesota. Anthony Edwards may be influenced by watching his former teammate KAT compete for and win a title after being traded to the Knicks. That's what Windhorst suggested in the lead-up to the finals. And now that KAT has the ring, the question doesn't get quieter, it gets louder. For a franchise that spent back-to-back years in the Western Conference Finals picture, shipping out an all-star forward and a first-round pick without a single active player coming back reads less like a rebuild. It reads like a pattern. So where does it go from here? Edwards has 3 years and roughly $157 million left on his deal, and there is no sign he is asked out. But the longer Minnesota goes without putting the right pieces next to him, the harder it will be to keep the conversation about winning instead of leaving. The Athletic's John Krasinski tried to lower the temperature on all of this. He wrote that yes, Ant was frustrated by how last season ended, but he has also already won a lot in Minnesota and believes in his teammates and the organization to keep upgrading. He's under contract for 3 more years, and the Wolves have time. Krasinski argued. That's fair, and it matters, but it's also the kind of measured take that doesn't capture what's actually at stake here emotionally, competitively, and financially for every party involved. Minnesota still doesn't have a true secondary creator who can take pressure off Edwards on the offensive end. And with DiVincenzo expected to miss most of next season, the gap only gets wider. The front office is banking on Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels taking bigger steps, but neither has proven they can be a consistent second option alongside Edwards when the games matter most in the postseason. The pressure on Timberwolves president Tim Connolly to redeem himself from public backlash after a series of questionable roster moves has never been higher. After trading Randle to the Nets in what looks like an obvious salary dump, Connolly's latest moves have national insiders wondering how long it'll be before Edwards signals that he wants a different situation. Windhorst was direct. They have to do something this offseason about addressing the Ant double-team situation, especially knowing you may not have DiVincenzo. And that double-team problem, the one that's been burning quietly since KAT left, doesn't get solved by Dosunmu. It doesn't get solved by promoting Naz into the starting lineup. Those are useful moves. They are not the move. Moving Towns was supposed to let the Timberwolves increase their depth. Now the team is looking shallow and financially strapped, while Towns is an NBA champion. The Timberwolves don't have an Edwards crisis today. What they have is a credibility test. If Minnesota nails this offseason, the trade noise will die down. If it doesn't, the rumors won't stay rumors for long. The clock is ticking for the Timberwolves, and this offseason could determine how long until it reaches 0. And through all of it, KAT, holding a trophy, cigar in hand, calling his little brother on FaceTime, sent a message louder than anything either of them has said out loud. The system that Minnesota built together, the one that was supposed to culminate in a championship in Minneapolis, instead delivered that championship to New York. And the man left standing in Minnesota is the best player on the floor every night, being swarmed by 2 defenders, with no one on his roster yet capable of making them stop. The 4-time All-Star averaged 28 points, 5.0 rebounds, and 3.7 assists, while shooting 48.9% from the field in 61 games this past season. None of that has been enough to quiet the questions about his future in Minnesota, which are getting louder by the day. He did everything asked of him. He became one of the best players on the planet. He stayed, he competed, he put up career numbers. He went to war banged up with a knee injury. He's done his part. Now it's Minnesota's turn to do theirs.